Okay, this is video number 2 in the series of 3 about interviews. We're going to cover what to expect and then answering questions in an interview to an extent. We might have to go into video 3 or more for that. But with an interview, you've got really four portions to the interview. Okay, it's hard to see on the slide. It's blocked out a little bit, but you have your arrival, your interview, your closing, and your follow-up. And again, the bullet underneath follow-up is hidden in this video. I'll also tell you what it says, but go back and look at the slides. But for your arrival, as mentioned in the do's, you want to arrive just slightly early. 10 minutes early is a sweet spot. Anything longer than that, I want you to wait in your car, go find a restroom, use the restroom, move about a little if you're anxious, practice, but do not go into that office until 10 minutes before an interview for all the reasons I listed in the first video, okay? You're going to meet a lot of different people. You're going to meet someone who checks you in. And for the most part, there's someone sitting at a main desk. Occasionally, I've been to an interview site where there's no one there and you have to follow some instructions like dialing an extension. So just read carefully and pay attention to that. You might be introduced to potential colleagues. You might be introduced to an entire team, even someone as high as the president or CEO. So keep in mind that you're making an impression on everyone you meet. So you want to be confident, stand up straight, cheerful, positive, all those do's. Have a good firm handshake, but not too strong. Okay, that's all your arrival. You want to be put together and polished. Then you have the interview, which is what most of y'all worry about the most because you are engaging in a question and answer. And that is sometimes one-on-one. So one person's interviewing you and it's just you, or sometimes it's a group, maybe 3 to 6 people, and they're doing questions in a round robin format. So each person's asking a question, you're answering. When that happens, you still have to make eye contact with everyone in the group. Just try to be confident about that, and we can practice that as well. Sometimes you have a series of interviews, so you might start with a phone interview, which is not in person. But all the same rules to interviewing apply. You still want to be dressed professionally. You still want to have a positive attitude. They can sense all like how they can even sense your posture in a phone interview. Sometimes you then go on to maybe a one-on-one or a team interview. You might have multiple interviews with the same company in one day because they stagger you through different departments. But keep in mind, it's just a question and A. It's for you to interview them and them to interview you. Okay, and we will talk about what to expect and questions about that in just a few minutes. Then you have your closing. So there's a point in every interview where you're asked, do you have any questions for us? And one of the huge interview killers would be if you say, no, I'm good. Okay, you always need to have questions prepared. And those are questions such as, what is your anticipated hiring timeline? Or if they've mentioned their team a lot, maybe you want them to expand on team building exercises. This is a really nice chance to pull in some research you've done about the company. So if they mention on their website that they are very much into giving back to the community and that hasn't been mentioned in the interview yet, you could ask them for some examples of how they do that because it appeals to you and draws you in. Again, we're not asking questions about salary, vacation leave, about really the work conditions as far as air conditioning, things like that, which you might laugh, but it's happened recently. The questions need to be specifically related to the job. Good questions are always, what is my growth opportunity? Do I have the opportunity to advance in this position? I'm happy to help you come up with questions if you're prepping for an interview and aren't sure. When we do our mock interview, there will be a time for you to ask me questions as the mock interviewer for a certain position. So you want to be thinking about those. If you don't do that, you'll be dinged. And then you always want to wrap up with what I call a closer. And it's just a quick sentence or two, thanking them for the interview and indicating again why you're the right fit. So my closer is typically, and when I'm interviewing, I practice it so it sounds a little more polished, but something along the lines of once all the questions are asked and it seems like we're at a standstill and they say, do you have anything else for us? You could say, I just wanted to let you know how much it means to me that you all took the time to interview me. After this interview, I'm even more excited about the job because of this project and that project. That's where you drop projects that have been mentioned in the interview. and I'm completely confident that I'm the best fit for this role, and I look forward to hearing from you. Now, once in an interview, I actually added on to that, this is my dream job. It has every aspect of a job that I envisioned myself having that I never believed existed. But certainly you don't have to do that. You just want to be authentic and thank them for interviewing you. And then a piece of the interview process that people forget about all the time, and it's another kind of interview killer, is follow up. Okay, you have to follow up with a thank you note. And typically we use email form. So as soon as you leave that interview and you get back home, you need to send an thank you note. And that's where meeting people at this arrival point in number one comes in handy, because you're taking down names and information of who's interviewing with you. If you forget everyone except the main person who's been your contact, you can send a thank you note to them and ask them to share it with the committee. That would be totally appropriate. But in your thank you note, you want to address the interview, points at which you feel that you can bring something to the team that were discussed in the interview, and again reiterate that you look forward to hearing from them. You have to send a thank you note. It's so highly professional. Then, okay, so we're going to talk about your responses, and I kind of have to, just to fit this in the time frame, be a little bit breezy about it. But again, we're going to mock interview, and you're going to have time to practice this. I have a handout with the top 10 interview questions, and I've actually saved that into the interview files in Moodle for this week. But this tells you, instead of giving you the exact answer, it tells you how you should answer. So tell me about yourself. This is not where you really want to go into what you enjoy doing in your free time and where you come from and the number of kids you have and so on. It's just a quick intro about where your strengths lie. So when someone says, tell me about yourself, you can say, I'm an ag business senior and plan to graduate in December 2019, and I'm seeking opportunities in such and such field, and I really feel that I have the ability to be strong in this field because of A, B, and C. That's enough, okay? Sometimes interviewers can use this question to kind of dig into more than they should. You need to be prepared to answer your greatest strength. I actually tell you all to have 3 greatest strengths prepared, because more frequently we're seeing a request for at least 3. Some people hem and haw over those, so this is a point where you could put notes in your resume, like on this edge of your resume that you're keeping for yourself or on a notepad. But you want to talk about your skills, your strengths, and then give an example. Okay? And again, it says right here, write down top strengths and example of each. Situation where you learn from a mistake. You have to share a mistake where you learn something, and it's okay to fail in the job field. We all do. We all have big mistakes and small mistakes. So you just want to go ahead and ponder and have a little note about an example of that, and you have to demonstrate what you learned from it. Okay? Same for most difficult situation, but you definitely want to talk about where you were successful in resolving that, like this says. Definitely don't want to, this is your don'ts list, talk about things where you didn't resolve it, where you were really highly unethical or did something illegal or didn't care. So think about difficult situations that don't paint you in too bad of a light. They ask for how you want to improve. Or sometimes they'll say, tell me one of your weaknesses. You need to pick a weakness that isn't something that's fully related to the job that you're applying for. So if they want you to be a good salesperson and you say that sales are your weakness, that's not going to be a great fit. They have good examples here. What I typically use is technology. It's not my greatest strength. And then I talk about the classes that I've taken to improve on technology and how I do try to incorporate it into my classroom to an extent. Most important thing you're looking for in a job. You could see this also as what are you looking for in a manager? But you need to be honest. This is where you are deciding if something's a good fit for you or not as well. Career goals. The wrong answer is to say, I want your job in 5 or 10 years. This is where, again, your company research comes into play. What have you learned about them and what opportunities they have? And then you want to have realistic growth expectations. So when you're saying, I'm going to be a manager within a year, that may not be realistic. But you could say, I want to help the company achieve this, and this goal that you've researched. And then I'd like to be able to move upward in a new capacity to help the company achieve those goals in a new way. Talking about what motivates you, really good explanation here. I don't even need to read it. Why would you like to work for us? This is again where your company research is a factor. What do they do that's unique? Why does this company fit your life mission? And that's where you talk about your overarching values and the fact that you and the company share those values. And then why should I hire you, or why did you apply for this specific job? What makes you unique? What are your strengths and how do they fit the job description? Okay. There's other questions you're going to have. We will practice some of those in a mock interview. But these are some really good, solid questions to be able to answer and rattle off in a confident yet appropriate manner, not overconfident. When you're responding to questions, you want to use what we call the STAR response, which you may have heard about. You're going to outline your situation, task, activity, and result. Okay? So if an employer starts a question with, tell us about a time, you know you need a STAR response. You're going to explain the context. So tell us about a time that you had difficulty in your job. I would say one that I typically use is when I first started working. I'd say in undergraduate admissions, we'd always worked with paper files, and that really appealed to me because I had evidence based on the stack of file of how much work I'd done per day and found them very easy to organize. And then our office decided to go paperless. That's my situation that I found myself in. As a result of that, we had to train ourselves with minimal help on a new paperless processing system and develop the process ourselves and become acclimated to it all within 2 months. That's my task. That's what I've been assigned to do. To do this, I had to work my way through the system multiple times and then take charge and begin to create a manual with best practices for the process to help the team. And I did this so that we still were able to have about 3 weeks of training time before applications went live. That's the activity. That's exactly what I did and what I implemented to achieve the goal. And as a result, although I had a difficult time personally acclimating to a paperless system, I did find that because I put the work into designing the process for the team, and we had adequate time to train, we were highly successful and able to process 25% more applications per day. So I've got my result, okay? And we will practice these, but really good for you to even map out on paper. Think about some of those when you looked at those top 10 questions. That tell me about a difficult time. Tell me about a time you took the lead in a group project, things like that. And you have to be ready to answer specific questions about how your experience and education relate to the job, okay? I'm going to wrap this video up, and then I'll cover the last few slides for you all.